Touch the leg. Welcome to Tibet this week, a weekly news that tells you about Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Central Tibetan Administration. The top headlines of the week. His Holiness the Dalai Lama graces conference on worldwide initiative for educating the heart and mind. His Holiness the Dalai Lama meets mayors from the US cities. Sikyong inaugurates special exhibition on memories. Central Tibetan Administration stands in solidarity with Chinese people in wake of various peaceful protests. Deputy Speaker attends Finnish Independence Day at Finland Embassy. Mayor Aftab Pureval meets the leadership of the Central Tibetan Administration. Japanese parliamentarians formed Caucus to monitor human rights in China. Representative Dr. Arya conducts a class at Reitaku University on Tibet. Film on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Never Forget Tibet, premieres in Australia. This morning, His Holiness the Dalai Lama graced the inaugural of the Conference on Social, Emotional and Ethical Learning, a worldwide initiative for educating the heart and mind. The conference, hosted by the Dalai Lama Trust and the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics, Emory University, is being held in Dharamshala for 2 days. The event will highlight the progress and impact of Compassion Center's programming, including the Compassion Shift initiative, and preview ways the initiative will advance a global culture of compassion through social, emotional, and ethical learning. A session on the groundbreaking science education program for Tibetan Buddhist monastic institutions, the Emory Tibet Science Initiative, will also be featured. Panelists include the President of Emory University, Gregory Louis Van Wes, Provost Ravi V. Palamkonda, Executive Director of Emory Compassion Center, Keshi Lobsang Tenzin Negi.
And this initiative is one of the visions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The conference that we opened today with His Holiness presiding over was a great blessing, and His Holiness's presence and the instructions and his guidance for this movement, if you will, is a great source of strength and inspiration for all of us who are working on sea learning to bring His Holiness's vision for education into realization. Now, the sea learning was launched in 2019 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in New Delhi, and in 3 years or so, the sea learning is now being implemented over 40 countries. It has reached over 6 million children, about 250,000 or so teachers, and it's one of the programs that we hope that it will be received and implemented worldwide.
The timing of the conference also marks 2 important milestones: the creation of the Dalai Lama Library and Archives, and the 33rd anniversary of His Holiness the Dalai Lama receiving the Nobel Peace Prize.
You must develop the very basis of peace here, warm-heartedness, and share with more people. At about 7 to 8 billion human beings, we all come from mother. We all have the seed of compassion. So now, I feel, whether believe religion or not, in order to be happy family, happy individual, happy community, warm-heartedness is very important.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama met and interacted with several leaders this week at his residence. On Monday, His Holiness met with mayors and former mayors from 7 US cities promoting compassion in their cities. On Friday last week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama granted an audience to Sikyong Pemba. Sikyong updated His Holiness on the activities the 16th Kasha undertook in the past months. His Holiness the Dalai Lama on Sunday last week met with Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh, Shri J. Ram Thakur. Sikyong Pemba inaugurated a special exhibition at the Tibet Museum titled The Spaces of Memories by Arya International Onlus this morning. The Deputy Speaker Dolma Tsering Tekang was also present at the ceremony as the special guest. The Central Tibetan Administration has issued a statement expressing solidarity with people who protested the zero-COVID policy and called for freedom and democracy in various cities and universities in China and East Turkestan. Reiterating its previous statement, criticizing China's mismanagement of the zero-COVID policy that endangered Tibetan lives, Kasha strongly urged the Beijing leadership to enforce human approach in dealing with public outbursts. Deputy Speaker Dolma Tsering Tekang of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile attended the reception of the Independence Day of the Republic of Finland on the invitation of Her Excellency Ambassador of the Republic of Finland, Reitaku Rondi, and Dr. Heet Rondion on Thursday last week at the Embassy of Finland, New Delhi. The Deputy Speaker met with dignitaries and diplomats from different countries and introduced them about the Tibetan Parliament in Exile and Central Tibetan Administration. On Monday this week, Aftab Singh Pureval, the mayor of Cincinnati, Ohio, paid a visit to the seat of Central Tibetan Administration. The young mayor met with the leadership of the Central Tibetan Administration and visited Kasha Secretariat, Parliament Secretariat, the Tibet Museum, Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, Sara College for Higher Tibetan Studies, and Tibetan School. Mayor Pureval met and interacted with Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and Standing Committee members of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, and Sikyong Pemba led Kasha.
It's my first time in Dharamshala, so I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with my cultural roots and heritage, looking forward to meeting as many Tibetans who are here as possible, talking with some students, meeting with some members of the government, and most importantly, learning how I can be an advocate back at home in the United States for our Tibetan heritage and culture.
Mayor Aftab Singh Pureval is the first and highest-ranking elected Tibetan American heritage to hold a prominent office in the United States. Bipartisan Japanese parliamentarians supporting the Tibetans, Uyghurs, and Southern Mongolians formed a parliamentarian caucus to monitor human rights violations by the Chinese Communist Party on Monday this week. The day coincided with Japanese House of Councillors passing a resolution condemning China for human rights and religious freedom violations. Representative Dr. Arya expressed gratitude to the lawmakers for forming a caucus and members of the House of Councillors for passing a resolution to condemn human rights violations by China. Lawmaker Keiichi Furuya, Minister Takaichi Sane, Shimomura Hakupan, and think tank director Yoshika Sakurai spoke on how international community's continued silence has emboldened China to commit atrocities on its people and the people of the occupied regions. The parliamentarian caucus group elected Keiichi Furuya and Hiromi Mitsuwai Bayashi of the Liberal Democratic Party as the chairman and the general secretary of the caucus. Yoshiko Sakurai of the Japan Institute for National Fundamentals, a think tank, was appointed advisor to the caucus. Among the special speakers invited to speak on the issues were Dr. Lobsang Sengye, the former Sikyong of the Central Tibetan Administration, and others from the World Uyghur Congress, Shizuoka University, and Southern Mongolia Congress. Representative Dr. Arya of the Office of Tibet, Japan and East Asia conducted a class on Tibet for the students of the Department of International Studies of the Reitaku University at the invitation of the university on Tuesday this week. Representative Arya spoke on Tibet's historical and religious importance in maintaining peace and harmony among the warring nations of Mongolia, China, Manchu and Nepal, the role of the Dalai Lama in Tibet and the neighboring countries, the Tibetan exile diaspora, and a brief introduction on social, emotional, and ethical learning. Theatres across Australian cities premiered Jean-Paul Martin's film Never Forget Tibet. The Office of Tibet, Canberra reported the film as an inspirational feature-length film depicting the story of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's escape from the Chinese-occupied Tibet in 1959. The film has been premiered across Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Adelaide, throwing light on the importance of love and compassion with urgency that will connect with audiences globally. Representative Karma Singhi, Bill Cross, a longtime friend and supporter of Tibet, the Australia-Tibet Council's Executive Officer Dr. Zoe Bedford, and General Secretary of Tibetan Community Australia's New South Wales, Mingmar Tsiring, were among the special guests invited at the premiere in Sydney. As a gesture of goodwill to support the preservation of Tibetan culture, the film's distributor company, Kismet Movies, linked Tibet Culture Centre, a not-for-profit charitable organization established under the Office of Tibet, Canberra, with their cinema ticket so the audience could make a voluntary donations upon purchase of film tickets. That is all for this week. See you in the next episode of Tibet This Week.